elections. And everywhere in Europe, the populists were, losing. Basically, they were actually they lost against the traditional parties.
Really?
Yeah. So in the Netherlands, Geert Wilders, the PVV, he's kind of like a famous face about right-wing populism in the Netherlands. His party basically completely got out of the European Parliament. Other populists also were not getting any votes. In Germany, the Green Party was winning, which is actually in response to remember that maybe a year ago we looked at the third industrial revolution of Rifkin, and those were.
I know Green Party very well.
Die Grüne. Anyway, so Germany had made very big plans about third industrial revolution and how they changed to renewable energy sources in order to be more compatible in the future when oil is running out and they no longer have to rely on a finite resource. Well, actually, in Germany, the Angela Merkel didn't make so much progress with this implementation.
You're talking about European Parliament?
European Parliament. So actually, and another element is that everybody in Europe is now terrified of what's happening in England, in the UK. Because what's happening there, that's something nobody wants. So all the Brexit, Nexit, Dexit movements, Frexit.
Why that kind of situation happens in the UK? As you said, that something very terrifying thing is happening, which is not
right.
Which the people does not want.
Right, because actually. I feel that the members of parliament are no longer representing the
representing the people.
Right. I think it's a failure of British politics in general. People do not feel represented, but in general, it's a failure of politics as a whole. Because why did this happen in the first place was because the people didn't vote. Right. So when this was a topic, if we look at the people who actually voted, those were all elderly people because the politicians didn't address the younger people, and younger people. And why didn't they address them? Because younger people felt that politicians were not listening to them. So it's a self-reinforcing circle. Because younger people do not vote, politicians do not target them. Because politicians will target them, young people do not vote. So politics in the UK has more and more alienated the younger people, and the elder people who have their.
You're talking about European Parliament election?
I'm actually basically talking about this European Parliament, but basically Sonata asked a question about Brexit. Why do they want to get out of England?
You're talking about British election?
Out of the EU. I'm talking about the British election. I'm talking about the European Parliament elections. So we had European Parliament elections throughout Europe this week, and basically the populists lost almost everywhere, which is, I believe, is a very good thing because it stands to reason that Europe has brought us a lot. It's not perfect, so we need to work on the way that we're operating things. But the idea behind Europe is very powerful, and I hope we can keep it. So this week they got a big boost that actually the people want to stay and want to keep the European Union. They don't want to get out.
You mean British?
No, Dutch, German.
They don't want to get out.
They don't want to get out. They don't want.
British get out.
No.
They themselves.
They themselves don't want to get out. Actually, everybody's fed up with England. They don't care if England.
They don't care about England.
They just, everybody's had it. Just okay. If you just can't decide, then just get out. I think everybody is really fed up with England, with the UK.
Fed up.
Yeah. So, but why did it happen in the first place? So basically, democracy in England is not working very well. The two-party system, basically why
Theresa May quit.
Theresa May quit, but she should have quit much earlier because everybody basically was fed up with her too. So that's also one of the reasons why they didn't want to work on in a more constructive way. Even her own members of her own party tried to get her out. So it's terrible, and I don't feel that the people in England have been well informed about the reality of the situation. And maybe they didn't care enough to listen to it. They just.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean.
What do you mean reality?
Well, they were basically. Why did they vote for Brexit? Because they listened to stories about there was an invasion of immigrants was getting into England, which is an anomaly. Well, anyway, it's not true. There were, of course, there were at that time. There were almost 1 million immigrants were coming into Europe. It sounds like an awful lot, but there are 3 times more even in Lebanon, a country that only has 4.5 million people. So
you mean the British misunderstanding immigration?
The British misunderstanding immigration. They have been they have been making a nationalist.
You wanted to say now is they gradually understanding what does the immigration mean?
No, actually, basically they voted with based on incorrect information. The people who voted were not a good representation of the
so
the
you
British.
get to know that.
Yes. So, but actually, still they want to uphold that Brexit vote for Brexit. So now, I mean, why is this continuing? Why is this vote so important? I think there are some politicians who are trying to abuse the situation, and they want to ride the instability and gain political influence. Nobody's actually really so much into actually addressing the real issue here.
Nobody means no politicians.
No politicians. Yeah.
So you mean your opinion is no Brexiteers?
So
Brexit is
so their mandate comes from
negative.
But their mandate comes from the election where people were ill-informed and the people who did vote.
Yeah, I know,
were
but
not.
my question is, your opinion is they are negative. Now is negative.
Now the rest of Europe is okay. Their opinion. They have 2 opinions. First, England, please get out. Don't waste our time any longer.
Yeah.
2, we want to stay in. We want to keep Europe. The rest. No. The rest of the Europeans, they want to keep Europe going. They don't want to get out of the EU.
No, my question is, you're talking about British, right?
No, I'm sorry. That's
I'm not confusing. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the European elections in Europe.
Yes.
And I'm talking about the fact that the populists in Europe lost.
I understand.
In almost everywhere.
I understand.
So that's what I'm talking about.
Then you said European people, they have 2 options, 2 alternatives. One is British, okay, exit, okay, but the other one is just keep it.
Yes. Yeah, not keep Britain, stay the country, your own country, want to stay in
EU.
Yeah.
You don't talking about British people thinking.
No.
Okay.
No. Not about British people. Well, British
this
people.
time, British people no voting for European
They did.
Parliament. They did, right?
Yeah, they did. But doesn't change anything. Basically, it's like wasted votes because they're gonna get out anyway. So.
Okay, I understand what you mean.
But if the ordinary people in the UK doesn't trust the politicians, then what moves them? What makes the ordinary UK people move? Populists?
Yeah. Because basically, what the populists do, and we looked at it.
It's a very dangerous situation.
It's a dangerous situation. It's happening in many places. Actually, what populism does, and I have it here, that populists they claim to speak in the name of the oppressed people. And they want to emancipate them and make them aware of the way that they're being manipulated by politicians and that a lot of things are happening. So they're appealing to, okay, I'm going to give you back what is rightfully yours. You could claim that Trump, in a sense, is also a populist.
Okay, so, but again, if the people, but still so many people and trust such kind of
No, they don't trust it. The point is, I think that they
trust what?
Trust the populist.
They don't trust him. Actually, this is an anti-vote.
Trust. Wait a minute. Trust populist means like who's populist?
Boris.
David Davis.
Boris.
And Boris Johnson.
Yeah. And what Farragut? What's his name?
David Davis.
No, Farragut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that. Farage. something.
I think Farragut. No.
No. But anyway, Boris Johnson is supported by more than 30% of British people.
Right.
But actually, the populist is supported.
But he only in his own party. But not only within the Conservative Party. No? Not within the British people. Only within the Conservative Party he has 30%.
Oh really?
Yeah. But that's actually the biggest thing.
30% supported, he will win the prime minister, right?
Right, because if he wins for the Conservatives, if there's no election, then he will become the prime minister.
So what he talking about? Still, British people support populists.
Actually, I think that I believe that a lot of people, they went with the system. They voted for Labour. They voted for the Conservatives. And nothing changed. Nothing got better. And people say, okay, I don't know. It doesn't help. It doesn't work if we vote left. If we vote right. Let's just clean it up.
So ordinary people of the UK lost their confidence
Yes.
on their the politics.
Yes.
In their nation.
Yes. I don't think that anybody was seriously like in the Netherlands we have politicians like Geert Wilders. I don't think that people were seriously listening to his economic policies and they don't care.
So, but if that is true, then so one of the things behind maybe there will be nothing serious things. Practically for the ordinary people, or ordinary people still believe so even if anything happens, nothing doesn't have to do with their daily life, but still they believe they can still continue their life.
Right. So basically what they got from the politicians was nothing. And they tried and they just give up and say, okay, let's just,
my point is most of the people doesn't feel about any difficulties on their daily lives at this moment. That's why there's no motivation for on them to have the strong interest on their politics or whatever.
Right.
So for example, if 80% of people lost their job, then it will be a huge issue, and at least these 80% of the people will have the strong interest in their politics, and definitely they are going to join the like voting or whatever. But at this moment, as I said, and especially the young people doesn't go to the voting.
Actually, that's not entirely true, because if we agree that Trump is a populist, he got a lot of support from people who did feel that they were in trouble because they were not being represented. They just wanted to get their jobs back. They just wanted to have their position in society back. So the middle class in the United States supported
So,
Trump because they didn't feel represented.
What I mean is the situation in the UK.
Yeah.
Because my big question is why such kind of some sort of a contradiction
That's
happens in the UK?
That's it. Okay, so who voted for Brexit? Those were not people who felt any difficulties. Those were people who had pensions, who lived in the small villages, who had enough money and just didn't want. They voted for England because the way that was represented to them was that England was about to be invaded by foreigners, and they were even making parallels with World War II. We were trying to defend Britain for invasion from Europe. Let's do it again. That's the kind of rhetoric that they were presented with.
Majority of the people who vote to the Prime Minister may be the elderly people who lives without any difficulties with the pension.
Right.
On the other hand, young people have a huge frustration on everything, but at the same time they lost the confidence on their politics, so they doesn't go to the vote.
They didn't feel represented. Nobody is addressing the youth because they don't vote. They don't. If you don't vote, you don't count for politicians. Right.
And that is the negative spiral.
Yes.
Okay. But even if that is true, but I still cannot understand that still not a few of the young people have some sort of threat about such kind of situation. If the young people doesn't do nothing, then the situation goes worse. So some of the young people still...
Okay, but if you want something... Okay, so basically the only thing that they could do is create their own political movement, because there is not a single political party in England, because there's only... Basically, there's Labour and there's Conservative. And they are not interested in people who don't vote. So if you need to create your own movement, you need to be heard in some way, one way or the other. But there's no other choice than, and they didn't do that. I mean, to be fair, I mean, they didn't do that. They felt, okay, politicians, they don't represent me, so I don't care, I don't vote.
But on the other hand, in the situation in France, still the huge the movement is continuing, right?
Right.
Gilet,
the yellow vest,
yellow vest movement.
Yeah.
I don't say in detail about what's inside that movement, but still the situation is the majority of the, not majority, but many people's insisting by that through that kind of activities. But what about the situation in the UK?
So the political engagement in France is different from that in the UK.
That is also the difference between the characteristics of the peoples between the UK and France.
I feel that the yellow vest movement is very much aimed against their politicians. So in England, they're not arguing against the politicians. There's different issue. They're arguing against the Europe and the Europe having them to accept large number of immigrants. They don't want that. But in France, it's dissatisfaction with the policies. I mean, Macron he raised the tax on fuel, and people were pissed off beyond imagination. It's probably something that has been lingering within France, and basically this was people were depending.
Okay, the situation in France, the people feels some threat about the Macron does, is doing.
But it's not only France, man. It's, it's
France
also in the Netherlands.
France is actually ordinary people against government.
Mm.
British is different, not ordinary different.
Oh.
Ordinary people against government. The British is just complex among each parties or fictions, conflict each other.
Right.
Different.
Mm.
So actually, in British is ordinary people maybe neglected, and they discuss among within parliament.
Right.
So common. So nothing settled. So that's the reason why Theresa May is kicked out. But Macron is different.
Okay, but